I remember that dinner vividly, the way the silverware clinked against the plates, the aroma of roasted chicken filling the room. But none of that registered in my mind because the words from Mom and Dad had cut through me sharper than any knife. "You're not half the woman your sister is," my father said, eyes locked on me, voice calm but heavy with judgment. Mom nodded in agreement. "She's accomplished so much, and you? Well, you're still figuring things out." I felt my chest tighten, a storm of emotions bubbling inside: anger, disbelief, shame, and that familiar sense of invisibility I'd carried for years. I pushed my chair back so hard it scraped against the floor, and all eyes turned to me, silence hanging thick like a fog. My sister Chloe sat across from me, her perfect posture, flawless smile, oblivious or maybe just enjoying the spectacle of me. I clenched my fists and said slowly, "I'm done sitting quietly while you decide my worth." My parents blinked, taken aback. I could see the surprise and a flicker of anger cross their faces. Dad leaned forward. "What do you mean?" I took a deep breath. "I mean, I'm not here to compete with Chloe. I'm here to live my life, make my own choices, and stop letting your comparisons define me." My voice wavered, but I forced it steady. My mother's lips pressed thin. "You need guidance. You're making poor decisions." I shook my head. "No, Mom, the only poor decision was letting your opinions dictate my confidence." Chloe finally spoke, sweet, but patronizing. "Maybe if you tried harder, things would be different." I glared. "Harder at what, Chloe? Living my life on my terms or trying to live up to a standard that isn't mine?" She shrugged. "Just saying what's obvious." The words hit, but instead of shrinking I felt something ignite, a fire I hadn't felt in years. I stood up, chair scraping loudly again. "Obvious? The only obvious thing here is that I've been invisible in my own home, and tonight, I refuse to be." Dad's face turned red. Mom gasped. Chloe's eyes widened. I took a step toward the door. "I'm leaving. I don't need your validation, I need my own life," and I walked out, slamming the door behind me. Outside, the night air hit me, cool and refreshing, and for the first time that evening I felt free. But freedom was new, strange, frightening, and exciting all at once. I called my best friend Sarah as I walked to the nearby park, her voice bright and concerned. "Hey, are you okay?" I laughed bitterly. "Define okay, Sarah. Because if okay means still being treated like the lesser sister, then no, I'm not okay." She chuckled softly. "Good. Then be angry, be furious, and then do something about it." I wandered along the path, moonlight reflecting off the wet pavement. "Something about it, like what?" I whispered to myself. She said, "Like proving to yourself what you're capable of, not for them, for you." I smiled faintly, the seed of determination taking root. The next morning I called in sick at work. Not because I wanted to escape, but because I needed time to plan. I made a list, a plan, anything that could shift my life from being defined by others to being defined by me. I started small, enrolling in an online course I'd always been interested in but never pursued: coding and digital design, things I loved, things I had ignored because practicality was always shoved in my face. Chloe texted me that day, "Mom and Dad are upset. They don't understand why you left." I didn't reply, not out of spite, but because I was learning to filter what mattered and what didn't. Over the next few months, I poured myself into learning, creating, building projects. Sleepless nights and early mornings became normal, but they were mine, owned and cherished. I even started freelancing. Small contracts that slowly grew into bigger opportunities. Each completed task was a victory, a small arrow piercing the heart of every word my parents had said at that table. But success is lonely when you carry it in silence. Chloe called one evening, voice curious. "Danny, I saw your project online. That's impressive." I paused, a mixture of surprise and skepticism flooding me. "Impressive?" I asked, eyebrow raised. "Yeah, impressive. I didn't think you had it in you." Her words stung but also warmed. Validation from her was strange. I laughed softly. "Thanks. I'm not doing this to impress you, Chloe. I'm doing this to impress myself." She hesitated, still. "Nice job," and hung up. I sat back, heart racing, realizing it wasn't about convincing them anymore. It was about finding my own confidence, my own voice. I started seeking out mentorships, people in my field who had succeeded without a family pedestal, learning from them, building connections, networking. Each step forward felt like shaking off invisible chains. But the real challenge came when I was invited to present my first big project at a local tech expo. Chloe had been invited too, as a speaker for her corporate job. The event promised cameras, journalists, potential investors, and I felt that old nervous energy return, the one I'd felt before all the dismissals at that dinner. I stared at my reflection before leaving. "You're not her, you're better. Because this is your story," I whispered, walking out the door into a world I was finally ready to claim. The expo hall buzzed with energy, bright lights, banners fluttering, journalists capturing every moment, and I felt my pulse spike as I approached my booth, setting up the prototypes, arranging the presentations, every detail meticulous because this wasn't just about showing off. It was about proving to myself that I could stand on my own. Chloe's booth was nearby, glossy, corporate, polished, and she smiled at me in that sweet, knowing way, the one that always reminded me of the comparisons my parents loved to make. I swallowed my nerves, forcing a calm I didn't feel. Then the first visitors arrived, curious parents, local tech enthusiasts, and I began presenting my project, demonstrating interactive designs, explaining coding processes. My hands shook slightly but my voice grew steadier with every explanation. A small crowd gathered, asking questions, and I answered confidently, each nod, each impressed glance feeding the fire inside me. Chloe wandered over, pretending to casually inspect my work. "Not bad, actually," she said, a little awkward. I raised an eyebrow. "Not bad? That's the best you've got?" She laughed softly. "I mean, it's really good, Danny." I forced a smile, keeping my composure. "Thanks, Chloe. That means more than you think." The event coordinator appeared, whispering that a local investor wanted to see my project up close. My heart raced. Investors weren't just looking for profit. They were looking for potential, and I had spent months, sleepless nights, perfecting every detail. I guided him through, explaining each step, each function, the logic, the impact. He nodded, asked questions, and when he finally smiled and said, "I want to invest," I felt a surge of vindication, not against Chloe or my parents, but against every doubt I had carried for myself. Chloe's eyes widened slightly, a flicker of surprise and perhaps regret crossing her face. Throughout the day more people gathered, journalists snapping photos, parents asking for contacts. My confidence soared, and when the event ended, the organizers called me on stage to speak briefly about innovation and youth opportunities. I stepped up, heart thumping, and spoke from the soul, sharing my journey, the doubts, the nights of frustration, the small victories. The audience listened, captivated, applauding at the right moments. Chloe clapped, a little awkwardly, and when I finished, a group of investors approached, offering bigger contracts, mentorships, and partnerships. My hands shook as I realized the magnitude. Dad appeared backstage, looking for me, eyes wide, voice tight with disbelief. "Daniel, I didn't know you were this good." I looked at him, calm. "Good at what?" "Proving myself to you." "No, Dad. Good at building my own life." He swallowed, a faint smile appearing. Mom followed, more cautious. "Danny, we didn't realize." I nodded slowly. "You didn't realize because you were too busy comparing me, too busy holding me to standards that weren't mine." Chloe stepped closer, a little defensive. "Danny, maybe you're overreacting." I shook my head. "Overreacting? Chloe, for years I was invisible because of your shadow. Today, I finally stepped out of it." Dad looked at me, words failing him. Mom tried again. "We just want what's best for you." I smiled, soft now. "Then let me choose what's best for me, not you, not Chloe, me." He nodded slowly, and though it was silent, the air shifted, tension easing, a new respect forming. Later that evening Chloe approached me privately. "Danny, I was wrong to belittle you." I paused, letting her sincerity sink in. "It's not about being right or wrong anymore, Chloe. It's about living my life." She nodded, tears brimming. "I didn't realize how much I hurt you." I shook my head. "You don't have to fix the past. Just stop comparing." That's enough. The next days were surreal, messages from investors, new freelance projects, collaboration offers, and the sense that I was finally being seen for my work, not my family's opinion. Each email, each call reinforced the truth. I was capable, talented, deserving, and no one's voice could diminish that anymore. Weeks later I launched my first official company website, shared my journey in a blog post, and to my surprise, the post went viral locally. Messages from young women, inspired to pursue their own passions, poured in. "I've always been afraid of failing," one wrote, "but reading your story gave me courage." I smiled. The thought that my struggle could inspire someone else felt more rewarding than any accolade. Chloe reached out again, this time more genuine. I saw the post, Danny. You've done amazing things, I replied, thanks. I'm building something I'm proud of, her tone soft. I'm proud of you too. And it didn't sting, it felt right, like a bridge forming where a chasm had existed. A few months later I was invited to speak at a regional tech conference. Parents, kids, investors, journalists, and Chloe was there too, seated in the front row, listening quietly. I spoke about resilience, about creativity, about standing tall despite doubt. And when I finished, applause thundered. The standing ovation felt like validation, not for proving anyone wrong but for embracing my own worth. After the event, Chloe came backstage, voice trembling. Danny, I understand now, I smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. It's not about them. It's about what you believe about yourself. She nodded, a tear slipping, and in that moment, the sister who once symbolized comparison became someone who could support me without undermining. A subtle, quiet victory. Dad approached afterward. I underestimated you, he said quietly. Sincere, you've grown so much. I nodded, thanks, Dad. It's taken work, but I'm finally living my life. Mom came next. We're proud, Danny. Truly, I swallowed, the word strange but comforting, the weight of years of judgment lifting slightly. That night, as I walked home, the city lights reflecting off wet streets from a brief drizzle, I whispered to myself, this is just the beginning, and meant it, because for the first time, I wasn't living under anyone else's shadow. I was creating my own path, my own story, and it was only going to grow from here. The next weeks were a whirlwind, my schedule filled with meetings, late-night coding sessions, brainstorming with my small but dedicated team. Every project felt like a declaration that I was more than the girl my parents compared to Chloe. The more I built, the more confident I felt, and yet, with growth came unexpected challenges. One evening I received an email from a major investor asking for clarification on one of my proposals. It was polite but firm, highlighting risks and questioning my experience. My stomach twisted, old doubts creeping in. I almost hesitated. Then I remembered every night I spent alone, every lesson learned from failures, every ounce of resilience I had developed since that fateful dinner. I typed back carefully, calmly, presenting data, projections, and a detailed strategy, sending it off with a deep breath. I watched my inbox obsessively until a reply came the next morning. Impressive. We'd like to meet in person, and relief mixed with excitement coursed through me. That meeting became pivotal. Walking into a sleek conference room, investors evaluating me like I was on trial, Chloe texting me mid-meeting, good luck, short, cryptic. But I didn't let it distract me. I presented every aspect of my project with clarity, passion, and authenticity. They asked tough questions. I answered honestly, sometimes admitting where I didn't know, but always showing initiative to solve it. When the meeting ended, they nodded, some shaking hands, others smiling. We want to invest in you. I barely contained my excitement. The validation was overwhelming, not because I wanted their approval, but because I had fought through every insecurity my parents had instilled in me. A few days later, I was at home, decompressing, when Chloe arrived unannounced, hesitant. Can we talk? I gestured to the couch. Sure, she sat, hands clasped, voice soft. I've been thinking a lot about that dinner, about everything, and I realized I'd been part of the problem. I studied her, curious. Go on, she exhaled. I was arrogant. I assumed I was better, that I had it all figured out, and I forgot to see you, really see you. I felt a lump in my throat, years of rivalry, comparison, and judgment condensed into this moment. I said carefully, Chloe, it's not about being better. It's about being true to yourself. She nodded, tears in her eyes. I want to support you. If you'll let me. I smiled faintly. I'd like that. It was the first time in years I felt the tension lift between us, a fragile but promising truce forming. Meanwhile, my company continued growing. New freelance projects became partnerships, small contracts grew into substantial investments, and every milestone reinforced my belief that I was capable of success on my own terms. But the journey wasn't without setbacks. One evening a bug in the code threatened to derail a major client presentation. Panic bubbled. My team looked to me for guidance. I swallowed the fear, rolled up my sleeves, and we worked through the night, solving problem after problem. Exhaustion hit, but the sense of accomplishment afterward was intoxicating, and when we presented to the client the next day, their approval and praise validated every hour spent. My parents eventually caught wind of the press coverage. Mom called cautiously. Danny, we saw the articles. I replied calmly, yes, we've been working hard. She hesitated. We're proud. I smiled softly. Thank you, Mom. That means a lot. Dad's approach was different, more reserved. But one evening he visited unexpectedly, walking into my workspace, looking around at the equipment, the progress, and I could see he was impressed. You've really built something, he said quietly. I nodded. I built it because I had to, Dad. For me, not for approval. He paused, then with a small smile. I think I understand that now. And it felt like a small but significant victory. Chloe became more involved too, attending networking events with me, offering advice, and surprisingly, she brought new contacts from her corporate world. I learned to accept help without seeing it as comparison. She was no longer the shadow, but an ally. The real test came when I was invited to speak at a regional innovation conference, a large audience, press coverage, potential investors. My heart raced as I prepared. I rehearsed tirelessly, determined to deliver authenticity, not perfection. The day arrived, and stepping onto the stage I felt that familiar nervous energy, but I embraced it, speaking about resilience, creativity, and owning your journey despite doubt. The audience leaned in, captivated. Applause broke out at key points. Journalists jotted notes, and I realized this was bigger than proving my worth to my family. It was inspiring others who felt overlooked, underestimated, or compared to someone else. After the conference, a group of young women approached, eyes shining. You've inspired me, one said. I've always been told I'm not enough, but your story shows it's possible. I smiled, touched, and in that moment I understood the real impact. Success wasn't just numbers or contracts, it was changing lives, even subtly. Dad and Mom showed up quietly afterward, watching me interact, Chloe beside me, and I saw pride, genuine pride, no judgment, no comparison, just acceptance, a shift that warmed me. The following months brought more growth, both personally and professionally. I launched my first full-time project with a small but growing team, mentoring young designers, collaborating with developers, taking calculated risks. Every challenge became an opportunity to prove to myself that I was capable, that my worth wasn't tied to anyone else. But when Chloe approached one evening, Danny, I just wanted to say, I'm sorry for the way I treated you, for ever making you feel less. I nodded, thank you. That means more than you know, and I felt a sense of closure, not total, but enough to move forward without resentment. Then came a pivotal moment. A major investor wanted to visit in person, a high-stakes meeting that could define the trajectory of my company. Nerves returned, but I reminded myself of every late night, every obstacle overcome, every moment I refused to let doubt control me. Walking into the office with confidence, presenting our portfolio, answering every question with clarity and honesty, the investor nodded, impressed, and by the end of the day, we had a deal, sealing not just financial support, but validation that my independent journey had real merit. When I walked home that evening, city lights reflecting on wet streets, I called Sarah. We did it, I said, breathless. She laughed. I told you, be angry, be furious, and then do something about it. I smiled. I did, and I'm still doing it, and for the first time in years, I felt the weight of comparison lift entirely, leaving me space to breathe, to grow, to live my story fully, authentically, and unapologetically. The next chapter of my life felt surreal, a blend of excitement and responsibility I hadn't known before. Each morning I woke to emails, project updates, and meetings with my small but passionate team. And each evening I reflected on how far I'd come since that dinner when my parents had told me I was not half the woman my sister is. The memory of that sting still lingered, but now it fueled me rather than weighed me down. One day I received a call from a well-known local startup accelerator. They wanted me to join a mentorship program. We've been following your work, the coordinator said. We think you have potential for real impact. My heart raced. I agreed immediately, and over the next weeks, the program pushed me to expand my vision, challenge my limitations, and refine my business model. Chloe noticed my new energy and called one evening, hesitant, Danny, you're changing, I can see it. I smiled softly. I've always been here, Chloe. I'm just finally showing it. She hesitated. I guess I underestimated you. I laughed lightly. Underestimation is a strong motivator. She chuckled. You've earned it. The program also introduced me to other ambitious young entrepreneurs, some skeptical, some inspired. But I focused on learning, collaborating, and growing. One project in particular required me to pitch to a panel of high-profile investors. I spent nights perfecting the presentation, rehearsing every line, anticipating every question. Chloe helped in her own way, connecting me with resources from her corporate network, and this time, their support felt collaborative, not comparative. The day of the pitch arrived, the room buzzing with tension and expectation. I stepped up, heart pounding, voice steady, sharing not just the technical aspects of the project, but the story behind it, the late nights, the failures, the determination to carve my own path. The panel listened intently, asked challenging questions, and I answered with honesty and confidence. When I finished, applause erupted. One of the lead investors nodded approvingly. "We're impressed. We want to be part of this journey." Relief, pride, and validation flooded me. But the real reward came afterward. A group of young women approached, inspired by my story. "You've shown us that it's okay to step out of someone else's shadow," one said, and my chest swelled with emotion. This was what I had wanted all along. To make a difference, to show that value isn't dictated by family comparisons or societal expectations. Chloe approached later, softer than ever. "Danny, I don't have the words, but I see you, really see you now." I nodded. "That's enough, Chloe. Seeing is better than words." She smiled faintly, and in that moment, I felt a sense of reconciliation, not just with her, but with myself. I returned home that evening to find Mom and Dad waiting, quiet, hesitant, but their eyes held a newfound respect. We're proud," Mom said softly, and I nodded. "Thank you, Mom. That's all I needed." Dad spoke next. "I didn't realize how much I held you back. I see now how strong you are." I smiled, warmth spreading through me. "I'm strong because I refuse to let comparisons define me." The days turned into months, and my company grew. Our projects expanded to other cities, more collaborations, mentorships, and speaking engagements, each success reaffirming that my worth was my own. Chloe became an ally, offering support rather than judgment. Her occasional advice came from experience, not superiority. One evening, after a particularly intense week, Chloe and I sat on the balcony, city lights below. "You've grown so much," she said quietly. "I'm proud of you." I laughed softly. "I think I'm finally proud of myself too." The bond between us strengthened. We shared ideas, laughed, and sometimes debated, but never again as rivals defined by our parents' comparisons. Another challenge arose when a critical client raised concerns about scalability. Panic crept into my team, but I remembered every hurdle I'd overcome. Nights of solitude, late night coding, early morning strategy sessions. I gathered everyone. "We've faced tougher challenges than this. We'll tackle it together," and together we brainstormed, tested, and implemented solutions. The client's concerns were resolved, and the project launched successfully, reinforcing the team's trust in me. My parents visited again, curious about my workspace, Chloe by my side, guiding them. The atmosphere was entirely different. No judgment, no comparisons, just acknowledgement. "You've built something remarkable," Dad said. Genuinely impressed, I smiled. "It's been a journey, but it's mine," and Mom added, "We understand that now." The sense of healing, though gradual, was tangible. Months later I was invited to deliver a keynote at a national innovation conference, an audience of hundreds, media coverage, young entrepreneurs, educators, and parents. I prepared, not just to showcase my work, but to inspire, to share the story of a girl who was told she wasn't enough, who learned to define her own worth. And to my surprise, Chloe was the first to introduce me on stage, her voice steady, sincere. "Ladies and gentlemen, meet my sister, a woman whose determination and creativity have inspired us all." I stepped forward, heart pounding, and began speaking, sharing not only technical achievements but the journey of resilience, self-discovery, and empowerment. The audience was captivated, applauding, engaging. Some moved to tears. I caught Chloe's eye, and for the first time I saw admiration, not envy. In her gaze, Dad and Mom watched quietly, eyes shimmering with emotion, realizing the pride was for me, not comparisons. Afterward, young attendees approached, eager to ask questions, seek guidance, share their own dreams, and I realized that the impact of my journey extended beyond personal validation. It was a beacon for others feeling unseen, underestimated, or undervalued. That night, Chloe hugged me, whispering, "I'm sorry for ever making you feel less. You're incredible." I held her tight. "Thank you, Chloe. But it's not about being incredible in anyone's eyes but my own," and I felt complete. the sister rivalry dissolved, replaced by mutual respect, partnership, and love. My parents joined us, embracing both of us, and I finally understood that the journey wasn't about proving my worth to them or Chloe. It was about discovering it for myself, standing tall, building, creating, and inspiring. The lessons of that dinner, the sting, the anger, the feeling of inadequacy, transformed into fuel for success. Compassion and empathy. I knew there would be future challenges, setbacks, doubts, and struggles, but I also knew the foundation I had built was unshakable: self-belief, resilience, and authenticity. And as I looked around at the team, Chloe beside me, parents in the audience, and young faces inspired by the story I shared, I smiled, whispering to myself, I'm finally living my life, my way, and it's only the beginning. After the keynote, life shifted into a rhythm that felt both challenging and fulfilling. The recognition, the projects, the partnerships, they all reminded me that my journey wasn't about chasing approval anymore. It was about creating value, embracing challenges, and inspiring others. Chloe stayed by my side more frequently now, no longer a rival but a collaborator. Her corporate insight complemented my creative approach. Together we brainstormed campaigns, strategized product launches, and occasionally laughed over memories of that fateful dinner that had sparked this transformation. One afternoon, Dad came to visit the office unannounced, holding a cup of coffee. Danny, I just wanted to see this place. See you in your element, he said softly, looking around at the bustling workspace. I gestured to the team, all engaged, focused, and passionate. This is my element, Dad. Welcome, he nodded, eyes lingering on my workspace, on the projects displayed proudly on screens, and I saw pride, genuine pride, not comparison. Mom followed shortly after, bringing homemade snacks, laughing at how seriously we all took meetings. I see you've created a world of your own here, she said, voice warm. Yes, Mom, one I've built for myself, Chloe chimed in, teasing lightly, and one that we're all lucky to be a part of. I smiled, feeling the sense of family shift from judgment and comparison to respect and support. Weeks later, I received a message from one of the young women who had approached me at the innovation conference. Danny, I started my first project today because of your story. Her words moved me profoundly. This was the ripple effect I had hoped for. My struggles, my resilience, creating confidence and courage in others. The months rolled on with more milestones. The company grew, investors came and went, collaborations flourished. But the real measure of success became the team I nurtured, the people I empowered, the difference I could make. Chloe approached me one evening, holding a tablet. Look at this, she said, and showed me a feature in our app she had designed to mentor young female entrepreneurs. You're turning inspiration into action, I whispered, touched. Together, she nodded, and we shared a quiet moment of satisfaction. One night, I sat alone on the balcony reflecting, the city lights shimmering like stars below. I thought about that dinner, the sting of those words, the fire it ignited, the months of growth, sleepless nights, victories big and small. I whispered to myself, I did it. Not for them, not for Chloe, but for me. The realization was powerful and freeing. Dad came up behind me quietly. Danny, can I sit? He asked, voice gentle. I nodded, and we sat in silence for a moment. Then he said, I never realized how much I underestimated you. Watching you now, seeing everything you've built. I'm proud, truly proud. I looked at him, gratitude and forgiveness mingling. Thanks, Dad. That means everything. Mom joined us, and the three of us watched the city lights together, the tension, the comparisons, and the judgments melting away. Chloe appeared on the balcony too, holding 2 cups of tea, offering one to me. For the woman you've become, she said softly. I laughed. Thank you for finally seeing me, she smiled. Better late than never. And in that moment, I realized that life had shifted from proving myself to anyone else to fully embracing my potential, my worth, and my joy. In the weeks that followed, the company launched a mentorship program for aspiring female entrepreneurs. Chloe became a co-collaborator. Mom helped organize workshops. Dad offered strategic advice. And I found myself at the center not just of a thriving business, but of a supportive, creative, and empowered network. One evening, after a successful product launch, I received a text from Sarah. You've done more than prove them wrong. You've inspired a generation. I smiled, looking around at the team celebrating. Chloe raising her glass to me, Mom and Dad smiling genuinely. I whispered to myself, this is what I was meant to do, and realized that my journey had transformed entirely. what began as pain and judgment had become fuel for growth, empowerment, and purpose. The echoes of that dinner, once heavy with shame and comparison, now served as a reminder of resilience and the power of believing in oneself. I leaned back, taking in the moment, my family beside me, my company thriving, my impact spreading, and I knew that no words of judgment could ever define me again, because I had discovered something far greater, my own strength, my own voice, and my own story, fully lived, unapologetically, and with love for myself and others. I finally felt whole, free, and unstoppable, and as I raised my glass to toast quietly to myself and the journey, I whispered, "This is just the beginning, and I am enough, always have been, always will be."